Alright, so Battlefield 6 is building more and more with labs, and surely at this point we're getting closer to a reveal of some kind, but in the meantime we've been getting community updates from the game since February. But one in particular that was long awaited was the follow-up to the Class Breakdown community update. Well, today we got that one, a part 2, and it's probably not what most people would like to hear, but published as Battlefield Labs Community Update, the Class System Part 2. It is a very long post, so we won't be reading the whole thing in its entirety, but rather recapping certain portions and what you should know about. So to start, they preface by saying some systems aren't yet available in Battlefield Labs, but everything discussed here is crucial for defining class identities and achieving our goal of creating the best class system in Battlefield's history. We've seen the suggestions to revert the previous systems and/or closed weapons. We are keeping that in mind in our discussions as we aim to connect new and veteran players to the Battlefield experience, fostering teamwork and creating a universal understanding of our systems for the future. So okay, that in and of itself sounds promising, right? Like it doesn't say anything yes or no, but let's keep reading on. What's this explainer here about? Well, they laid out a bit of a recap of what was said in the last community update and how it shapes the in-game play. But moreover, as you'll come to see, it's more of a thorough breakdown of the systems already explained, while not necessarily deciding to change a whole host of things at its core. They detailed, firstly, training paths, where they talked about this was like 2 broken down pieces last time, but they meant to double down on what was already explained and go a little bit further to give a bit more clarity on it, where it said these training paths are meant to amplify the unique strengths of each class, coming with 2 distinct training paths that you can choose from when customizing a loadout. Flat stat bonuses and benefits that enhance your performance in teamwork scenarios and objective play. Now, it's structured in 3 different levels. Level 0, which is your passive benefit, available on immediate selection of the training path, and then levels 1, 2, and 3 to follow, where levels 1 and 2 are enhanced benefits aimed at improving your selected role, only earnable through team play and progression and score XP. This is something that sticks with you at this point, it seems like. And level 3 is that one-time use ability that manually activates and either benefits yourself, your team, or your situation in the match. Now, they used Recon as an example for all of this sort of community update, so just kind of as a holistic approach to explaining how one class will work. They said that for the level 3, the Recon's ability is a damageable UAV to mark positions for passive spotting. Upon activation, you'll need to continue working with your team to make sufficient progress to use it again. So like, you get that score going up to level 3, activate it, it drops back down to your level 2 with your individual bonuses, and then you work back up to get it again. But leading to that point of that UAV, you do have to remember that these trainings split in 2. So you have 2 distinct choices and paths that you can personally play and work with to progress towards that. Recon's, it's Sniper and Pathfinder, where Sniper, the level 0 is improved auto spot speed, range, and duration. That's a baseline passive that will always be present. Level 1 is a sniper hit will highlight the enemy and prevents healing, and level 2s will be a sniper headshot or unrevivable, those being always active, but only once accrued in the XP to get to that point. Pathfinder's level 0 is quieter takedowns, crouch, and prone movement. Level 1 is undetectable by equipment except when sprinting, and level 2 is enemies you damage or spotted for your team, not just you. And again, both of those, the level 3 being the UAV that can be activated for passive spotting. But then they go on to further detail a bit about class identity, where they said each class has a signature weapon described to intrinsically connect the class identity, this offering weighty bonuses to your performance if you choose the right weapons in the respective class sets. So things like assault rifles and the assault class, pairing those together, they describe that as the ultimate infantry fighter, where using an assault rifle with this class will result in faster transitions from sprint to shoot and switching between assault rifles and other weapons. So basically like a faster swap speed and being able to, after a sprint, have your gun up faster in an engagement. Engineer and submachine guns, this is something they described. Engineers are positioned for close quarters, so you're going to end up getting a benefit of improved hipfire control with SMGs in the engineer class. Support and light machine guns will not suffer from sprint speed penalties like other classes would if they were using the same weapon in a different class. And recon and sniper rifles, scope sway will be decreased and the ability to stabilize your aim by holding your breath improves with each use of a sniper rifle. Also, they said being highly proficient with sniper rifles will also allow for recon to be faster at rechambering between shots, so getting that sort of fire rate up a little bit if you're picking off enemies. But on top of that, not only just for class identity and these signature weapons, they said each has a signature trait as well, doubling down on that too, where assault will have enhanced mobility. Engineer will have explosive damage resistance. Support will have faster revive speeds. Recon will have that aim spotting. And finally, class-defining gadgets were also laid out here at this, where Assault will have an adrenaline injector. Engineer will have that repair tool, as always. Support will have a supply bag, and Recon will have a motion sensor. So you have a bunch of these different things that come together to build the class itself out a little bit more, to add more weight to ways you may play the game, but notably, class restricted and locked weapons are still not in the plans as it stands for weaponry in Battlefield 6, despite the resounding feedback that they should have class restricted weapons from the part 1 of the community updates back in May. So what's interesting is that these messages from those involved with the comms of Battlefield and even the post itself, it kind of seems like, hey, keep the feedback coming, you might see some changes in the future, but realistically, it doesn't seem like that's actually gonna be happening. So essentially, this community update part 2 was message received, but no. Rightfully, I think that if you're a Battlefield fan, you can absolutely be frustrated by this if you are. To me, it seems like they adjusted a ton around the main complaint, but not the main complaint itself. Trying to add weight to those systems at hand without locking specific weapons, but making it perhaps more inconvenient for how some weapons may handle in other classes. Making it not impossible, but almost as if like a guided or very strong suggestion to use these certain weapons in these certain classes, but not actually locking them. Now, I'm absolutely more in favor of locked weaponry to classes, as the classic Battlefields would dictate, but I guess in a sort of devil's advocate perspective, if they're going to double down and not consider that feedback or revert stuff, for whatever reason, I think we can all assume the reasoning, as we'll touch on in a second, the things they are doing to mitigate and offer some class weight, definitely I think they could be worse, so at least there's some updates in that aspect, but still, it's not what I think the game should have or needs realistically. It just seems kind of silly to have a system in place to inquire about feedback, get the overwhelming feedback on a surprisingly pretty singular point, and then just disregard it. Like, I gotta hand it to the Battlefield community. I'm not quite sure that I've seen in recent years so many gamers en masse have such a focused point of criticism where so many people agreed wholly on the one specific point. You don't see that much in gaming anymore. I mean, like in today's day and age where everybody has an opinion on everything and there's a million different opinions out there, to have so much focused energy and feedback on one point is pretty impressive. So to disregard that and again try to reinvent the wheel when the formula of fans is and has been right there is interesting, to put it kindly, I think. But I think that independent of the discussion on class-locked weapons versus not, this comes back down to reports we've seen recently. One in particular, but mixed with a heavy logical theory as well, where recently, the last time we talked about the classes, we talked about how it seemed like the initial pitch of the system was so that they could sell more skins, and realistically only that. When you limit the usage potential of a weapon skin to a weapon and a class that players may not necessarily use, that limits the potential yield for sales and thus revenue. To you or I, who cares, right? Like, I don't really pay attention to the shop, whatever. I want to be able to play it how I think the game should be played. But to EA, who want to recoup what's being reported as nearly a $500 million project at this point, obviously they're going to want to nickel and dime those types of things, and where there is the chance for revenue, they're probably going to take it. Maybe not necessarily forcing it down our throats, though I'm sure that at some point it'll feel like that. Maybe not necessarily forcing it down our throats right now, but like in theory, a skin in a store doesn't mean you have to buy it. I don't interact with storefronts in games much at all, but if that skin is there for use 24/7, if it's a weapon that you or I like, on a weapon we can use all the time versus a specific class that would only get like 25% of our playtime, obviously you'd be less likely to buy if it's restricted, which is unfortunate, but from a business perspective, that's probably the reasoning they're taking here for this and why it's kind of superseding any of the feedback we're giving. But while I also still think that's the case here as to why predominantly we see this still doubling down on, it also makes sense, I think, in the lens of that recent Ars Technica report, where it was mentioned that EA executives are almost exclusively looking at to replicate the successes, financially and player count-wise, maybe not gameplay decision-wise, almost exclusively looking to replicate the successes of Fortnite and Call of Duty in recent years. So while the community update speaks to we aim to connect new and veteran players to the Battlefield experience, this sounds more like you're gunning for the new players and not trying to sort of make them feel off-put by having things locked behind certain ways to play the game. Trying to actively more so cannibalize the FPS space in the sense of drawing more players from Call of Duty or something like that, like pulling them away from the game that they may otherwise be playing, rather than trying to satisfy the existing Battlefield players. To a degree, I think that can work well, but again, only to a degree. Like if you ask a predominantly Call of Duty fan what they think of this, they probably wouldn't think much of it, wouldn't think twice. And if the gameplay looks enticing, gunplay feels visceral and hard-hitting with a feeling of authenticity, I think that you probably won them over, and this is kind of a non-issue. But if you ask a Battlefield fan about it, you'll be getting that resounding response that we've seen already on this most recent community update and the last, where I'd say probably 98 to 99% of the replies of that community sentiment are that this is the wrong move, and why the hell would you ask for feedback if you aren't going to implement it? As someone who tries to dissect each situation in a sort of neutral way, it's certainly a weird situation to like look at from afar. Like you've been given the overwhelming solution by the people who just want to see the game do well, and it starts with them, in my opinion. Your dedicated audience is what's going to propel and be that driving force behind the conversation, behind the word of mouth, behind the suggestions to get their friends to buy the game. That if you try and just acquire a new audience in anything and disregard that already established fan base as a sort of rebrand, it's not going to work well. And I think that this might be one of those situations where it plays into that theory. I saw a recommendation that makes so much sense to me, shout out to Danny, where you could easily please the players who want the class locks, put it in the premium game and with Portal 2.0, but if you want to reach those COD players and like try and actively compete and pull other people off of other FPS games, have things unlocked in like the Battle Royale and the free-to-play offerings. If Gauntlet's included in that, I mean, you could throw that in there as well. But there's always ways to please everyone that we can think about, but it's such an odd decision to entirely disregard that potential. So this is certainly a sore spot, I think, for hearing about Battlefield 6, and I still so badly want this game to do super well. Honestly, I don't know if, when hands-on time comes, if this will like tank the game. Optimistically, I'm hoping that maybe we're all overreacting, and in practice this works way better than it sounds on paper. I mean, we're comparing it to 2042, and if we're honest, yeah, the freeform weaponry didn't fit all that well, but it certainly was not the only sin that 2042 committed by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm hopeful, because I really do think the FPS space needs a great game for people to fall in love with and get addicted to. And from what we've seen from labs thus far, the game looks and sounds great. And it still has me wanting to get on PC, boot it up, and jump in and play it. So like I still have that interest there, but it's just, I don't know, it's just a weird and really off-putting thing to see that much focused feedback just disregarded. So anyways, that's going to wrap it up. Let me know your thoughts down below. What do you guys think of this here? Are you guys liking the sound of these freeform and non-class locked weapons, or do you think that we should be going the way of Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, these class locked weapons? Let me know your thoughts, but drop your thoughts down below. If you guys enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor, drop a like on it. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Battlefield 6 and other FPS content. We've got a very busy fall upcoming, so a lot of games that I'm really excited to share with you guys. So if you'd like to stay up to date with all of that, I'd love to have you in the community. But for now, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.